Well, that's a fine looking shirt, isn't it? That looks really good. Classy white on classy gray. Clearly legible. It's got a good looking graphic on it. It's the kind of shirt I would almost pay money for if I were so inclined to do so. Yeah, not bad, not bad. You can see it pretty clearly. It says right there on the scrawny, aged torso of this week's host of Tent Talks Tunes. That's me, people. That's me coming at you live on the Facebook. Woo. Almost got kind of dizzy staring at you guys like that, peering into the camera in such a fashion. That's a lot of close focus work, kids. Woo. Got my Danbury tap. We'll be well hydrated for the next 60-ish minutes on the internet. My main man, Alan, says that this is the best show on the internet. Alan, who am I to argue? Am I going to try to prove you wrong? No, I'm going to try to prove you right. Every week, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Set your calendar by it. I try to be regular. Let me just get my various monitors and devices here set up so I can see what I'm doing. How do you like it? T-shirt made by my good pals, the Crawfords in Pensacola, Florida. Y'all saw the live unboxing last week. If you were indeed tuned in to Tent Talks Tunes live, maybe you witnessed the rerun on my YouTube channel, which if you haven't subscribed to yet, you really should. You know, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to put something right here on the table for everybody to ponder. I don't even know what it means when you subscribe to a YouTube channel. I mean, what happens when you subscribe to a YouTube channel? I have subscribed to several YouTube channels, usually ones relating to professional wrestling or American history or certain music channels, and I have not noticed anything that has ever happened because I have subscribed to a YouTube channel. What does that mean? What do you get? You know, I mean, it's definitely, it's good for my ego because I log on every week to post, you know, my live episodes, and I see that I've picked up some more subscribers, and that's pretty cool. So what do you get? You know, like say, for example, I'm subscribed to the Championship Wrestling from Florida Archives channel, because I want to know when they post new stuff, and I want to know what's going on over there, because professional wrestling from Florida, you know, Florida NWA in the 1970s, that's my jam. That's where I got a lot of my vocab. That's where I got my understanding of right and wrong, good and evil, black and white, you know, shades of gray. All that came from either professional wrestling or Marvel Comics or Three Stooges movies when I was a kid. So I've subscribed to the Championship Wrestling from Florida YouTube channel, and nothing. I get schmutz. I don't get any notifications when they post new videos. I get nothing. So why did I do that, and why am I always asking you to subscribe to my channel? Somebody please help an old man out. I'm not... You'd figure after the better part of, what, 26, 27 years of the internet that I would be at least somewhat savvy about it, but I'm not. I'm really not. I'm learning on the job, and I'm relying on you, my frantic fans and vivacious viewers, to give me a clue. Just a clue. Just one little clue. Malice Von Kreit says TTT is greater than HHH. Now, if that's a wrestling reference, I know exactly what you mean, and I will drink to that. For me, the great sport of professional wrestling ceased to exist sometime around 1985, and it had a very brief resuscitation between the years 1993 and about 1997, when ECW, the original ECW, was ascendant. That was, in my opinion, the last gasp of professional wrestling. And I know there's a lot of independents out there. I've heard the name Ring of Honor. I've heard a few others. Apparently, old school NWA is alive and well, thanks to Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, which is a band who I loathe. Like, I really, honestly hate the Smashing Pumpkins. But, you know, I'll give a left-handed salute to Billy Corgan for buying the actual, honest-to-God NWA and keeping it going with those old-school production values. You know, I can hardly listen to more than one song by the Smashing Pumpkins. There's exactly one song by Smashing Pumpkins I really like. The rest of it, I don't know what I would do to it, but it'd be really gross. But you know what? If all the money he made from that mediocre music is going towards keeping the NWA alive, I will give him that. I will begrudgingly allow him some brownie points for doing that. So, yep, we'll take a little swig of Danbury tap for the efforts at professional wrestling preservation by Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, who I think are one shite band. To you. It's kind of like Jack White of the White Stripes. I think that their music and his music is beyond mediocre. I think it is trite. I think it is lowest common denominator white boy blues for the 21st century. Whenever I'm in the vicinity of it, and I have the misfortune of hearing it, I just really want to... I got to grit my teeth and clench my fist and somehow not deliver a physical blow to the radio or the record player or the TV or whatever it is that's playing Jack White and or White Stripes. I really got to restrain myself. I'm restraining myself now. You notice how calm I am? You'll notice the placid demeanor on my visage, on my frame, how relaxed I am at the thought of Jack White and or the White Stripes. Very, very relaxed. So having said that, I do once again have to give a somewhat begrudging salute to his, opening a pressing plant in the city of Detroit, and for having a recording booth at his so-called record store in Nashville. You know, he does cool things with his multi-millions. Far more so than your average Mick Jagger or Jimmy Page or other irrelevant dinosaurs of the past. So whatever, you got to take it for what it is, man. And I have no idea how I ended up on that tangent. Somebody help me. You got to tell me why I just ended up going on a rant about Jack White when all I did was sign on a few minutes to Tent Talks Tunes. I don't know. But that's the beauty of live cable TV style entertainment. You honestly never know what kind of hell is going to break loose. And I think that's maybe why you guys tune in, because you just don't know what kind of a corner I'm going to paint myself into at a given moment. Caramba! I see the comments are coming in fast and furious, thick and foggy. Let's see. Stephen Young thought that Jack White and the White Stripes were husband and wife. That sounds like polyamory to me. I don't know what's going on here. Well, I've seen quite a few comments about Grave New World by Discharge. That was a hot topic last week on Tent Talks Tunes. Archived, of course, on my YouTube channel. David Austin wants to know what my take is on Cut the Crap by The Clash. David, I have done not an entire episode of Tent Talks Tunes, but good chunks of episodes in the past on Cut the Crap. Another one of those just completely god-awful, unlistenable albums that I am fascinated by. Just utterly fascinated by. Just to give you the short take on it, I think that there are definitely good songs in there, and that if the lineup of The Clash that was supposedly on the album, which is the, Paul Simonon, Joe Strummer, Vince White, Nick Sheppard, and the excellent drummer Pete Howard, right? Howard, White, Sheppard, Strummer, and Simonon. If that actual 5-piece rock and roll band with guitars, basses, and drums had been allowed to record that album, it would have been a pretty good album. It would have been a really decent album. Not great, but decent. The reason being that the songs needed an outside arranger. They all tend to sound the same after a while. Joe Strummer only had one vocal melody, basically. And that's where Mick Jones's genius was. He could give Joe Strummer different vocal melodies to sing. And the other guys in the Clash at that time either couldn't do it or weren't allowed to. That's the nutshell. If you want to hear the whole damn story, look up the past episode on my YouTube channel, because it is there and it is archived. I'm sure if you just type in Ted Talks Tunes Cut the Crap, it'll come up. It should anyway. Let's see, we got a couple of other comments from folks. Yes, I see we got Amy tuned in from North Carolina. And Mike from Vancouver, BC. And, yep, Gordon Soley. Mike Lesser has just name-checked the greatest professional wrestling announcer ever, Gordon Soley from Championship Wrestling from Florida. A definite toast to him. So what other kind of mayhem have we got to address? Let's talk about the mailbox and the bulletin board. As seems to be happening a lot recently on Tent Talks Tunes, I spent so much time setting up the camera on the tripod. And even so, I think my picture might be a little bit crooked, but, you know, once again, like I said, we're keeping the values of cable TV alive here. This is definitely not network television. This is DIY, made in the shade, 100% single dude production here. So I spent so much time trying to adjust the Verschlungener tripod just so I could go on air live and not look like this, that some of the finer points of my presentation got pushed aside and lost. For example, I was going to print up some flyers for upcoming anti-scene shows that we got. We have several gigs coming up in March and April. We're doing some runs through the Southeast and the Gulf Coast states. If you want to learn about them, go to Anti-Scene's Facebook page. Go to antiscene.com. Or just send me a message saying, hey, Tent, you old creep, what's up with those anti-scene shows you were teasing us with? Where are they? When are they? Why are they? How are they? I'll tell you everything I know. Don't start me talking, because I'll tell you everything I know. Other items on the bulletin board? I can't think of any right now, so let's check the mailbox and see what has come into my fabulous magical mailbox. P.O. Box 3626. That's P.O. Box 3626. Newtown, Connecticut 06470. Those were some poor-ass looking zip code numbers. 06470. That's my mail address. My mailing address, and sometimes things show up in there that I want to show you guys and talk about and brag about and just generally be happy about. Earl E. Cox from Pontiac, Illinois, I'm assuming, is in the house. Welcome aboard, sir. Pontiac, Illinois is a town I've never been to. Where is Pontiac, Illinois? You got to tell me, man, where is it? I've been to Lake Villa. I've been to Chicago. I've been to Lake Charles. That's really all the Illinois that I know anything about. So yeah, where is Pontiac? Are there any good places to play in Pontiac? Like if I dragged out my sparkly blue solo acoustic guitar and went to Pontiac, would there be a place for me to play? Let me know. Let me know. Because 2023 promises to be a busy year for rock and roll, and I certainly would not mind squeezing in some solo acoustic gigs, if at all I could. The live comment says 100 miles south of Chicago. So in other words, middle of nowhere, telling me. Am I right? I I think I'm right. You don't have to answer that. I think I'm right. But you know what? The vast majority of my solo acoustic gigs have taken place in middles of nowheres. And I think they're the best fun. They're the most fun. I love playing those towns that are just really little itty-bitty specks on the map, because that's the real world. That's the real life. That's real America. That's real England. That's real Belgium and France. That's real Mexico. That's real... Those are the places I've played. You know, all power to the big cities, but, you know, New York, London, LA, Chicago, we already know about those towns. But what about Pontiac, Illinois? Like, what's there? I want to see what's there. I want to go local. I want to experience what life is like on the ground in a place like Pontiac, Illinois. I want to open my eyes when I wake up in the morning and see a place that is not headline news, you know? I mean, that's the reality of it. And that's what I really, really dig when I go on tour. So maybe I'll put the finger on you, Earl E. Cox, to get some info about playing somewhere around there for when I do hit the road as a solo, or with Ultra Bunny. Ultra Bunny, my fabulous noise rock band, is 21 years old this year. Ultra Bunny are a fully grown adult band, finally. And we've got some loose plans to play and to tour in the U.S. when I don't have other obligations. So let's think about that. Let's try to put something together. Let's get this old guy on the road, man. Put me on my natural habitat. Make like Motorhead and keep me on the road. We got a lot of people here. Hey, Miss Jill from Newtown, Connecticut, oddly enough, is in the house. And I think she saying something about a gig, maybe in a garage. Maybe in a 2-car garage in Newtown. Just a thought. Just a thought. A toast to my bass-playing ancestor in They Hate Us. Miss Jill, salute. So yeah, what arrived in my mailbox? Not too much, but one thing that is extremely exciting for a label guy like myself, you know, my label, TPOS. And you can see it's got a red sleeve, and the label on the record doesn't look like much. All you see is a corporate logo and a big old B. But if we take the record out the sleeve, and then take the record out the sleeve, well, you still really don't see a whole lot. You see a 12-inch vinyl record with a generic pressing plant label on it. But if you can read the fine print on the text, it says, test pressing. Right there, kids, test pressing. What could it be? What is this LP that I got a test pressing for? What is it? I'll tell you what it is. By putting on my dollar store cheaters and squinting real hard at the matrix. I mean, I already knew this. I'm just doing this for dramatic effect. TPOS 239. TPOS number 239. What does that mean? That means that the 239th release on TPOS is actually a tangible reality. We don't have copies yet for the general public, but the very fact that the test pressing is here in my hand is real. It exists. It is on hard vinyl. TPOS number 239. Tiny Tim. Prisoner of Love. A tribute to Russ Columbo. Tiny Tim said over and over again in many, many interviews and conversations that in his mind, this was the best album he ever made. Tiny Tim, Prisoner of Love. First time ever on vinyl. And it's going to be on TPOS, baby. It's been released before on CD on the original Punk Media label. Punk Media is run by my good pal Mark Robinson in Ohio. And Mark really... he's got an impressive pedigree. He's known primarily for producing and releasing 2 albums, one of them being Prisoner of Love by Tiny Tim, the other one being Carnival of Excess by G.G. Allin, both albums of which the respective artists considered to be either their best or amongst their best. And Mark Robinson's the guy who put the whole thing together. He actually got an orchestra together to back up Tiny Tim. He put the string band together to back up Gigi. And I am extremely, extremely honored and proud and flattered to be allowed to be the guy releasing this stuff on full-length vinyl for the first time. Very, very cool. So we can be expecting to have, I mean, you know, the situation with the pressing plants these days, who knows really when I'm going to have the product in hand. But I will say that the test pressings arrived a lot faster than I thought they would. I sent the order off in December, and here it is February 1st, and I've already got the tests. So that's kind of promising. It's kind of promising. We might see Tiny Tim LPs in my hands with covers and everything sooner than we thought. Who knows? Who knows? Pardon me while I burp. Thank you very much. That is Cinema Verate, live on the internet. And preserved forever on my YouTube channel. Let me minimize a message somebody sent me. I will tend to that later. All right, guys. Let's take a fork and stick it into the meat of the matter. And let's talk some tunes. It's been a very busy past couple of weeks for yours truly. I've said it before, I'll say it again because I love to repeat myself. My main gig, well, you see, I've got 3 different main gigs. I work a few different hustles in order to pay the bills and buy Harry all of his cat food. Harry is, as usual, snoozing peacefully over on the Davenport. It would make for great TV if I reached over and grabbed him and waved him around in front of the camera, but I can't do that. I gotta let the little guy sleep, you know? He only sleeps 19 hours a day. I can't interrupt any of that. A lot of hustles in order to buy the cat food. I play in bands, such as Anti-Scene, They Hate Us, Ultra Bunny. I do my solo acoustic thing, The Bloody Apostles, my noise project called Fried Man. I got a lot of stuff going on. So I play in bands. I run the label, TPOS, found in these fine locations, which if you haven't checked them out yet, you should do so. The label, and the root of my hustle was buying and selling records from when I had my record store for 21 years. I never got out of the record business. I still hunt down collections whenever I can find them, buy the collections, and resell them. And man, it is F-U-N with a capital F-U-N. Oh boy. Think about it. Whatever your hobby is, what's your hobby? In fact, I want to know. I want to know what your hobby is. All you people who are tuned in right now, I see there's a few of you. Leave a comment. Tell me what your hobby is. What do you do for pastimes? I'm really, really curious. Golfing, skeet shooting, mountain biking, stamp collecting. What do you guys do? I mean, because, you know, I'm a coin collector, stamp collector. I love comic books. I love fossils and minerals. I got all that stuff. But my main hobby is music, collecting records. And I, you know, get down on my knees every day and praise Jah for being allowed to pay my bills with my number one hobby, which is collecting and by extension buying and selling records. Now James Pogo says that he likes to collect metal pencil sharpeners. Somehow, James Pogo, I don't think you're putting me on. I bet you really do. Metal pencil sharpeners. post a couple of photos if you got them, because I want to see them. I'm very curious about that. Malice Von Kreitz, collecting records and sometimes soda bottles. Yes. I got a few soda bottles myself, as a matter of fact. Boy, if they weren't so far away over in the kitchen, I'd grab a couple of them and show and tell. Maybe on the next Tent Talks Tunes, Tent will talk bottles. So I think they're really neat. Old glass soda bottles are really neat. Alan says, collecting CDs and music action figures and bobbleheads. Yes, indeed he do. I got a few of those myself. Amy Lynn, rock music, horror, and owl. Ooh, owl collector. You mean like you go out in the wild with a net and rope in some owls and throw them in the tub? What do you do? How do you collect owls? I don't get it. Actual rocks. Yes. Amy Lynn Myers, you'll be happy to know I've got some uncracked geodes on my mantelpiece. I love them. Geodes look really cool, even when they haven't been busted open. And you can shake them and hear what's inside of them. I love that kind of stuff. In fact, rock collecting was the first hobby I ever had when I was just a wee lad. Pear from Scandinavia, record collecting, photography, and movie posters. You can relate to that too, fella. I like to whip out my camera every now and again. And I'm going to get one last comment from Miss Jill, buying too many old stereo components and convincing herself that she will fix them. Yeah, I've been there, done that too. I usually just end up giving up and taking the husks of the old stereo equipment to the Goodwill or the recycle bin at the transfer station and just dump it out. I can't fix anything. It's a little known fact that if you want to totally destroy, totally ruin any piece of like electronic equipment, give it to me and let me try to fix it. That thing will be a smoking ruin faster than you can say Pioneer Laserdisc. It won't take long. So anyway, my main hobby is also my main source of income, collecting records and buying and selling and trading. So I picked up a few really good collections lately, and as is my prerogative, I picked out a couple of things for myself that I'm going to keep, and I'm going to tell you about some of them. First of all, in this great big old random collection of just really generic rock records that I found last week, you know, in amongst all the Frampton Comes Alive and the Styx records and the Bob Seger records and the whatever the hell else was in there, all that, the usual run-of-the-mill rock music falderall, Billy Joel. I was pleasantly surprised to find an album that's not very rare, but is probably really good by a band that hardly anybody knows about. And I think I've talked about these guys before. This is a group called Family. And I think really the only claim to fame here in the States that Family can boast of is that they were one of the opening bands when the Rolling Stones played Hyde Park in 1969, which was arguably the first big outdoor free festival in July of 1969. It was Family, Battered Ornaments, King Crimson, maybe a couple of others. So I always read the name Family in association with that Hyde Park gig, you know, because I'm a huge, the Stones are one of my top 3 favorite bands of all time. So I was always mildly curious about what Family sounded like. And so, you know, over the years, as I'm out buying these collections, I would occasionally find records by Family. They did have a few releases in the States. This one here, self-titled, with a really neat die-cut cover. Somebody attempted to invest a few dollars into Family's presentation. What label is this one on? Bears kind of a resemblance to Kraftwerk's Radioactivity album, doesn't it? Except it's a TV set. It's a vintage TV set. You got the front. You got the back. Now, Kraftwerk's album came out in 1975. Look at that. Gatefold die cut. Look, I'm on TV. Look, hey, I'm awesome. 1972. This predates Kraftwerk by 3 years on the ill-fated United Artists label. UA did put out a few interesting things. Hawkwind, for example. They were on UA in the USA. And, of course, Family. There might be a couple of others. Larry Mann from New Haven, my main man. Larry, are you aware of any other good rock bands that were on United Artists? I know I'm missing a few. But Family, once I finally got a chance to listen to them, are really good. They are really, really good. They are of the that school of very British, no-nonsense, heads-down, boogie music. Like blues rock, boogie, but not mindless. Usually you get the sobriquet of mindless stuck in there. Like Foghat, for example, or Savoy Brown. That is heads down, no nonsense, mindless boogie. Family is heads down, no nonsense, intelligent boogie, and very well done. It's like their musical roots are the same as Foghat, for example, but their chops are far superior. Way more sophisticated songwriting and play with Family, and way more sophisticated lyrics. This is another one of their US albums, Family Entertainment. You can just tell right off the bat by the cover there's a very wacky English sensibility to this. There's a sort of sense of humor going on that Foghat does not possess. That Chicken Shack never possessed. See, now this one's on Reprise. They have a white label promo of them on Reprise. And that's a whole subgenre of collecting right there, the white label promo. I've talked about white label promos a lot on Tent Talks Tunes. And these 70s pressings on the Warner Brothers music group series of labels they're just really cool. There are lots of white labels on Reprise and Warner Brothers. Straight and Bizarre had a lot of white labels. I'm trying to think of who else was on the in that family of labels, but they were really, really good about releasing the white labels to radio stations and record stores. So it's always a pleasant surprise to find a record by a band you really like, and it's on a white label. I've got some Captain Beefheart white labels that I'm very, very fond of that I don't intend to part with. But Family, yeah, really cool stuff. They have several releases in the US. This is a UK only best of, and once again, you've just got this sort of humor at play that you don't get with a lot of other British blues bands. It's made to look up like an English lad's storybook. Really, really cool. And musically, quite tasty. And I'm really excited because having found this one random Family record that I never owned before, I've never heard before, in a bunch of boxes of just the usual run-of-the-mill bourgeois, that's exciting. I love it. Love it. Lots of fun for the old man here. And this one's also on UA, on the tan and gold UA label. Very cool. So I will be listening to this one very, very soon. It was a random find in the wild. And that's why whenever I have a chance to look at a collection or I'm at a flea market or something, I look at everything. I look at every blessed one of them. Because you never know. You just never know. James Pogo mentions that, yes, Can, the great krautrock band Can, had some U.S. releases on UA. And those are rare as heck. I've only come across, God, maybe one or two ever in 37 years of professional record dealing. And the one I found was even just a few years ago. I've never seen one before and haven't seen one since. Can, kids. Krautrock at its best. Now, of course, talking about family means that I have to give honorable mentions to similar groups from the UK, such as Tucky Buzzard, who I've also talked about on Tent Talks Tunes. Very smart, very savvy British rock. And of course, probably my single favorite of all, Pato. And I have definitely talked about Pato as well on Tent Talks Tunes. These guys are the bee's knees. They are the monkey's bum, the duck's arse, so to speak. I mean, the title, roll 'em, smoke 'em, put another line out. Fleetwood Mac never released an album with a title like that. Forget it, dude, forget it. And these guys, more or less, became the Ruddles later on. That's cool, baby. That's real cool. Nobody from Chicken Shack was ever in the Ruddles. This one is firmly ensconced in the personal collection. Another one that I found in the wild in a big old collection of records was one that I could never afford to keep, because a copy of this one in good condition usually goes for about $125. Luckily for me, well, it's a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is that it's not in any kind of sellable condition. The good news is, well, I can keep it for myself then, because I'll suffer through the, and you guys really won't be able to see it, but if I try to play it, I can hear it. A record that I never paid attention to because I could never afford to keep it, but now I got myself a real beater of a copy. And I do mean beater. This poor thing has just about had it. But if I take my turntable and adjust the tone arm weight to the maximum weight, I can play this record. Let's see if I can show this to you guys. You might be able to actually see this. I don't know. This is not really going to be visible. But this record has a wicked heat warp on it. Like somebody left it leaning against a radiator. And while it didn't affect the flatness of the record, you can see it's perfectly flat. It didn't affect the flatness of the record, but it did kind of melt and compress the grooves together at the start of the side. So when the needle tries to play over the grooves, it sort of like jumps in like that, and you hear a kind of a hissing noise. And if I didn't have a good turntable, this thing would not play at all. But on the beautiful old turquoise Capitol label from the 1950s, a stone cold original monophonic copy of Blue Jean Bop by Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. Look at those beautiful mid-mod graphics on the front. Those flat two-dimensional colors. The cut and paste graphics made with scissors or a razor blade and glue. A lot of stock graphics from the in-house graphics department. Liner notes that try to explain exactly what this kind of stuff is. I'll read some of these liner notes. This is from 1950 whatever. 1958. Singer and guitar player Gene Vincent is a brand new, uninhibited interpreter of Blue Jean Bop, whose beat has kids the country over dressed in their dark blue denim uniform, dancing in a frantic, freewheeling fashion. In this album, his first, Gene sings some standard ballads and some lively originals in the refreshing manner that has produced so many fervid, faithful fans. And it goes on like this for a few paragraphs. You know, it's kind of like they're trying to explain to the old people just what this freaky-looking weirdo is all about. This greasy inbred hillbilly, you know. Ooh, look at that. That's not Mitch Miller. That's not Jackie Gleason. That's not Jimmy Dorsey. What is that? Oh my God, it's so weird. That can't be right. Ew. But also, I mean, the graphic style. Look at the way they cut him off. Isn't that awesome? That's like above the waist times 10. He doesn't even have a waist. He just sliced it right off him. He's kind of hovering in space. He's like an amputee. I love this kind of stuff, man. That's just great, great graphic work. And the album's pretty good, too. It's got Jump Back Honey, classic. Jezebel, awesome. Blue Jean Bop, which was the hit. But also lots of filler. You know, I guess, you know, as is usual, old Gene was having a couple of hits, so there was pressure to release an album. And Gene, just record something, anything. We got to fill an album with something. So that's why you've got Waltz of the Wind, That Old Gang of Mine, Up a Lazy River. I mean, that's some corny, trite, white boy shiz-witty right there. But there's also, you know, Jumps, Giggles, and Shouts, which is just basically a cheap, quick rewrite of Shake, Rattle, and Roll, you know? So it is a real definition of your average 50s album, which was a couple of hits and then lots of filler. But the hits are worth it. And the fact that I have to work real hard to get my turntable to track this one and play it right, it makes it worth keeping for yours truly. I have not had many copies of this in the past. Whenever I have, they've sold pretty quickly. So, one beater copy for yours truly. Found in the wild. Yay! There is a whole bunch of others. In fact, I might have some here. Maybe someone can help explain this one to me. In another collection I found, that was very disco-centric. Lots of 12-inch singles. Lots of really great dance music from the 70s all the way up to the 90s. And they were owned by a guy who was a DJ, a New York City club DJ in the 70s to the 90s. And he had several of these, which have always mystified me. You see these a lot. The mysterious and enigmatic... Some spooge in the grooves there. We can't have that. The mysterious and enigmatic Disco Mixer. The Disco Mixer 12-inch single. When you listen to it, what you're going to hear is a lengthy, non-stop medley. And it's all like disco beats, hooks, like the catchy hooks from songs, lyric snippets, break snippets, all segued together seamlessly. And all with the same tempo. Like one of these is marked, this one for example, the guy actually marked the tempo on a sticker. 124. That's 124 beats per minute, non-stop, throughout the entire piece. And, yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know if this was actually made, if this was actually recorded in live time with live turntables playing the various records that the drum tracks and the beats and the rhythms come from. If it is, it's a hell of a piece of turntablism because it's seamless. I tend to suspect this might have been concocted in the studio. But my question is, what's the purpose of this? What is the purpose of a disco mixer? And why did this guy have, you can see the title, Bits and Pieces number 3. He had 1, 2, 3, and there is actually a 4th, but all the information is obliterated with a magic marker, so nobody can read what it is. But 4 copies of this one particular disco mixer, Bits and Pieces 3. I mean, I can understand you're a DJ and you're in a live situation and you're mixing and matching 2 different records at the same time, but 4? Dude, someone's got to explain that to me. I don't understand it. And then what's the purpose? I mean, does a DJ use these to link between other songs on other records? Does the DJ use this to take a bathroom break? you know? So it sounds like there's a real mix going on, but all he's doing is playing this one record while he goes and, you know, grabs a sandwich or something. I don't get it. I do not understand. If any professional DJs out there know what the hell these things are for, please let me know. Post a comment. Because I am mortified, mystified, and generally just missing in action when it comes to these things. I don't know nothing. Completely ignorant as to the purpose of a disco mixer. There it is. Allegedly, these were put together by John Jellybean Benitez from New York City, because a lot of them are credited to Ben Benny or Ben and Benny. That's just speculation. I don't know if anybody knows, but it's curious, very curious. And there's a bunch of different disco mixers, and almost every single one of them that I've come across exists in multiple different pressings, which I'm assuming were knockoffs, counterfeits, copies of whatever original there was. Apparently making a disco mixer was a real cutthroat business. So they had to have had real value to DJs. I don't get it. I need an explanation. A toast, Nate, of Danbury tap water to getting the knowledge. Danbury tap water, liberally fortified with mercury from the old hatting industry. It might as well be vodka, I guess. All that mercury entering my bloodstream and settling into my brain. Oh boy. Might explain a thing or two. And I guess I could still do a brief casual mention of what happens when the sidemen come to center stage. I've just been playing a lot of these records lately on a mad whim. It was triggered by, I couldn't even begin to tell you why, but for some reason I woke up and decided to play this album by The Attractions, as in Elvis Costello and The Attractions. The provocatively named Mad About the Wrong Boy. It's a good album. It's a real good album. Completely written and performed and produced. I don't know about produced, but definitely written and performed by The Attractions, Elvis Costello's backing band. And it's good. It's real good. The keyboard playing by Steve Naive, you can definitely tell it's Steve Naive. But that's really the only element of it that sounds like an Elvis Costello record. You take a lot more chances with the songwriting and the production value and the sounds than Elvis himself did. It doesn't sound like an Elvis Costello record, really. It sounds more like it's got a lot of 60s Britpop influences. It's a really good record. The only problem is the vocals are not quite up to snuff. They're a little bit weak. And they give the entire group credit for the vocals, and you can definitely hear that all three of them take turns singing, and there's a lot of harmonies on it. No one would ever accuse any one of these guys of being Elvis Costello. That's kind of like the Achilles heel of this record, but it's still a good record. It's cool. Kind of similar to one of my other favorite hobby horses. I think the Doors would hate being called a backing group, but that, of course, is how they were commonly perceived. And when they did their first album after old Jim Morrison, you know, faked his death and went to South America to live in anonymity, their album kind of suffered the same fate. Musically, it's fantastic. Musically, it is as good as anything in the regular Jim Morrison Doors catalog, but the vocals, yeah, neither Ray Manzarek nor Robbie Krieger quite had the throat that old Jimbo did. And it's a shame because the music is great. The vocals just kind of ramp it back a little bit, and the lyrics ramp it back a little bit more. I think a lot of Jim Morrison's lyrics are really dumb, but they have the it factor, you know? In spite of their dumbness, maybe because of their dumbness, they're still cool. The lyrics on this album just mostly aren't that good. But I still love it. I love that album. That was my first Doors album ever. So I can kind of grin and bear it when I listen to the awesome music and the vocals and the lyrics. I will mention also Dramatis, as in Dramatis. And you see, I'm never sure how to pronounce this. In Latin, it's Dramatis Persona, so maybe it's Dramatis. Gary Newman's backing band. Yes, Cedric Sharpley, the drummer. And I'm pretty sure Paul Gardinier, the bass player, is on here. But definitely Chris Bell and Russell Payne. I'm sure I got their first names wrong, but 3 or 4 of Gary Newman's backing band. They released quite a few records. And I would condemn most of them with faint praise. This one's pretty good. Snappy British new wave. Doesn't, kind of like the Attractions record, doesn't really sound anything at all like Gary Newman, and certainly not in the vocal department. But it's good. It's got a lighter, airier approach. And this is, I think, Face on the Wall is the best of their records. The other ones are just kind of nondescript. And then The Rumor, as in Graham Parker and The Rumor. These guys are good. These are like real top shelf British pub rock veterans. I think everybody on this record's a star, man. I think Brinsley Schwartz, who was in this band? Who was in The Rumor? Look at that, Brinsley Schwartz, Martin Belmont. They're the name guys, and then Steve Golding and Andrew Bodnar, along with Bob Andrews and Dick Hansen. Those are all guys whose names you will see over and over and over again in the credits of lots of albums from the late 60s and going into the 70s, pub rock, punk rock, new wave scene. I think that The Rumor did better on their own than they did with the Graham Parker stuff. I never cared for Graham Parker. I really thought he was... I don't know what he was. He just never... As Anita Ward would say, he never rang my bell. I just never really got into Graham Parker, but I really like The Rumor stuff. I mean, it's Brinsley Schwartz, you know? That guy knew what he was doing. He had a career long before Graham Parker with, Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds. All those guys ran together. Rumor, very tasty stuff. As I like it, very smart, very well done, and their songwriting is completely not obvious. Like playing a lot of their songs, you think you're going to hear a certain chord change, but you don't get it. It goes somewhere else. Or they'll drop a really weird rhythm in there that you weren't expecting. I like that. Very smart. Very smart. And that, my friends, wraps up this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Yeah! Thank you guys, always, for tuning in. I'll give you fair warning, I am not going to be on the air next week because I will be in the great state of North Carolina on anti-scene business. We got a couple of, not top secret, but projects in the works. You'll be hearing all about them sooner than later, but I will be down there for a week or so, rocking out. Groovy baby, yeah. And I should be back the week after that. Not 100% sure, but I should be. Either way, keep an eye on the Facebook and on the YouTube and on the Instagram, all the places where the cool people lurk. I will be posting my comings and goings and doings on those platforms. So that's it, guys. I'm out of here. I'll see you when I see you. Hopefully sooner than later until we meet again. This is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.